Ben Bernanke has been subpoenaed. Dan Fitzpatrick is going to tell us all about that one. This is interesting, right? This is a lawsuit revolving around Bank of America's purchase of Merrill back during the heights of the crisis, and the plaintiffs in the lawsuit want to get Ben Bernanke on the stand to get his part in this whole thing.
Right. Yeah, Bernanke's being dragged back to the past yet again. The controversy at that time was whether or not Bernanke forced B of A to basically complete the deal, and whether or not he threatened Ken Lewis, who was then CEO, with his job if he didn't go through with it. So I think that is what these plaintiffs hope to ask Bernanke. It's still a question of whether or not he's actually going to sit for questioning.
No, he was asked that in front of Congress a couple of years ago and answered it and said no. Why isn't that sufficient for all the parties, or what is it that the plaintiffs might be hoping to get out of it besides the same answer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, for example, Ken Lewis has given slightly varying accounts on this question. He first told Andrew Cuomo in a deposition in 2009 that Henry Paulson threatened him and he felt like Bernanke agreed with that threat. And then later Ken Lewis, before Congress, said something slightly different. No, Bernanke never threatened me. So because Ken is actually a defendant in this suit and probably is saying something about what government officials did or did not do, I think the plaintiffs just want to make sure they have their own their own story.
As
from
you
Bernanke.
point out in the story, it's just pretty rare to get a regulator to testify in a case like this, especially the Fed chairman. What are the odds that this actually happens, that he actually ends up testifying in this case?
Yeah, it probably, I think it's definitely a long shot. Now, the law states, though, that if an official like a CEO or the head of an institution has personal and direct knowledge of the matter at hand, then they have to sit for a deposition. So this could go before a judge. I mean, a judge could decide this, and if they want to ask Bernanke, what did you say or not say to Ken Lewis, it seems to me there's really no one else who can answer that question other than Ben Bernanke.
Now, who will ultimately make this decision? Who's making the decision for the trial? And is this something that could eventually get to as far as, let's say, the Supreme Court?
Well, Judge Kevin Castle, he's the one who is overseeing this case, Southern District of New York. If these two sides can't agree on whether or not Bernanke should sit, because the Fed has made some other officials available, they feel like maybe these guys can answer whatever questions you have. If they can't agree on this, then Castle will probably have to make that call.
Wow. What's the timeline on that? When should we expect to hear that?
Well, I think the deadline on discovery for this case, I think, is another month or two. So I think this is all going to come to a head here in a matter of weeks.
And what is the suit seeking again?
Well, the plaintiffs say, B of A should have disclosed more about Merrill's losses to shareholders before shareholders signed off on the purchase.
They hid the losses.
They hid the losses, right?
Because they were afraid the deal wouldn't go through, and the financial markets would unravel, and cats and dogs living together, the whole thing's a disaster.
Right. Whereas B of A has said, well, the government basically told us to do this, number one, and also told us not really to disclose anything about those talks about U.S. aid before it was done. So we're sort of replaying the crisis yet again through this case.
Maybe they get Paul Giamatti to appear, because Giamatti played
as
Bernanke.
Maybe like they wouldn't notice. Like they wouldn't notice. Just throw him there.
He was pretty convincing.
He was good. Yeah, he was a good actor. All right, Dan Fitzpatrick, thank you very much.